Trying to shirk my responsibilities.
Okay, so we'll get started. Good afternoon. I am Lindsay Andrus, a grant coordinator at CJC, and I've taken over SCIP from Rachel. It's been a pleasure to be able to see all of you on screen today and work with y'all and communicate with y'all over the past several months. Rachel will continue to be in the background to support with direction and guidance as SCIP progresses. And as a quick reminder, this is a public meeting. The materials and the recording will be posted on the website. And the chat feature has been disabled so that we are able to capture all the discussions for public record. So today's meeting summary, we'll have a brief SCIP 22 funding update. We'll discuss advisory board governance. We'll vote on funding prioritization for SCIP 2024. And we will reserve time for public comment at the end of the meeting. So this is a time for any member of the public to make a comment about today's proceedings. Keeping in mind that it's not a time for questions for either staff or committee members. Now, I don't have anyone signed up for public comment, but we'll check at the end of the meeting to see if there is. I do want to start by calling the roll to see who is here. So as I call the names, Jenny will be notating. Sheriff Morrissey O'Donnell. I don't think she's going to be attending today. Peter Clem.
I'm here.
Jeff Howes.
I'm here.
Jen Fraga. Roy Moore. Dr. Chisholm. Dr. Chisholm is coming at 1. So if we need to vote and we need her for quorum, we'll hold the vote off till that time. Jess Marks.
Here.
Aaron Borla.
Here.
Lori Palmer.
Here.
Councilman Jones Dixon. Shannon Seville.
Here.
Representative Court Boyce. Kimberly Rose.
Here.
Senator Solomon. Dr. Carlson.
Here.
Jessica Pratt.
Here.
And Chief Womack.
Here.
Thank you. So moving to the SCIP 22 update, the project period, and this is just a refresher for those who, it's been a while since we've had a meeting and we do have new members on the board. The project period for SCIP 22 is September 1st, 24 through August 30th, 2026. And project period in this situation, it just means the length of time you have to spend the money. Available for SCIP 22 is roughly about 2.8 million available to potential applicants. At the bottom of the slide, you'll see the SCIP Advisory Board approved priority areas. These are the funding priorities that you as the Advisory Board approved during the May Advisory Board meeting. So where we are currently with SCIP 22, we have submitted the grant award modification that details these approved priority areas, and we have submitted it to BJA. They have given us some feedback on it, so we're working to get that done behind the scenes and resubmitted. And once everything is completely approved by BJA, the funds will then be released and we can open a solicitation for those funds. And the solicitation in this scenario just means that CJC will put out the guidelines for potential grantees to apply. Are there any questions or comments from the advisory board on this slide? Okay, I'll move on to the next one. I wanted to briefly cover conflicts as it relates to public meeting law in this circumstance. So SCIP advisory board members have ethical responsibilities because they influence the operations of state government. So if a SCIP advisory board member would or could potentially benefit from an award, they must disclose this to the staff and not participate in deliberations for that application or that award. As we get into more grant-making decisions, we can reach out more about individual circumstances. So who can vote? Any SCIP advisory board member can abstain from voting for reasons beyond a conflict of interest. BJA does not have voting requirements amongst the SCIP advisory board. But as a point of clarity, traditionally at CJC across the board, legislators have been on grant advisory committees and grant advisory boards, and as well as the Criminal Justice Commission as non-voters. So if legislators on the SCIP advisory board want to continue as a non-voting member, then they can abstain as they feel the need to on any or all of the votes. Is there any questions or comments concerning the voting? So on the agenda, it was mentioned the advisory board governance, and broadly speaking, the responsibilities of the SCIP advisory board are to set funding priorities and to review requests and make recommendations for funding. What CJC has learned is that a chair or signature designee is needed for BJA. So the SCIP advisory board letter that was sent to the 10 voting members present at the May meeting is an example of how a chair or a designee could sign off on the voted plan and submit. Because we didn't have a chair designee, it required the signatures of everyone, and the whole process took a little bit longer than it would should we have a signature designee or a chair for the advisory board. So at this time, I just wanted to ask the advisory board, are there any thoughts on a chair or a designee? Or is there anyone that is interested, or would there be a nomination?
It's probably
Lindsay,
best
I have
for
a
them to nominate someone
question.
that's not here, right?
Sure.
Lindsay, I have a quick question. This is Erin. Can you clarify that this would make the process, I don't want to use the term easier, but allow the staff to be able to move the process in a faster way? Is that what you're saying? Can you help me understand that?
Yeah, sure. This one person, if it were a signature designee or a chair, they would essentially be the voice of the advisory board. So if, like, for example, the funding priorities for SCIP 22, it was unanimous, the board agreed on it. But because we didn't have a signature designee or chair, it required all the members to sign it versus one member to sign it and submit it. Does that clear it up? Okay.
That's helpful. So it does allow the process to move slightly faster as far as administrative tasks, but the advisory board is all still participating in decision making.
Yes, it wouldn't be that this person had the ultimate say. The design of this advisory board is so that everyone, their voices all carry equal weight. So this person would just simply be the signature that, hey, the board did decide on this, or that chair. Peter, were you going to say something?
Yeah, if nobody else is hopping in, I'm happy to self-nominate.
Okay. what does the board think about a chair versus a signature designee?
Would there be any difference in what they do? Is it just the title?
Essentially, it's just the title. That there wouldn't be any difference. This person would be the one still signing or representing the board. Jeff, go ahead.
Well, if it doesn't make any practical difference, then I suggest we have a chair because that's a nicer honorific, and you know, just seems like it. You know, I'm more used to referring to a chairperson than I am to a signature designee. Very simple.
Understood. Any other thoughts on that, or agreeing with that as well? I see some thumbs up. Kimberly?
I was trying to indicate a thumbs up and accidentally raised my hand, but I second what Jeff proposed.
Okay, if there's no other comment about this, we can take a vote. So I'm going to ask if there is a motion for, since Peter so kindly volunteered, is there a motion for nominating Peter as the advisory board chair?
I'm happy to nominate Peter.
Okay, and then a second for that.
A
Jeff,
second.
okay. All right, so we're going to do a roll call for the vote, and we'll start off with, I think Sheriff O'Donnell is not present, but let me check. Is Sheriff O'Donnell here? Okay, we'll move down with Peter.
Aye, yay.
And Jeff.
Yes, I vote yes.
Okay, Jen. Roy. Jess Marks.
I vote yes.
Okay, Aaron.
Yes.
Lori.
Did you say Lori?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. Yes.
Okay, thank you. Councilman Vince Jones Dixon. Shannon.
Yes.
Representative Boyce. Kimberly Rose.
Yes. Yes.
Senator Solman, I see you joined. Welcome.
Hello. No, I mean, I'm happy to vote yes, but I will tell you that normally on these commissions, legislators are like non-voting members, so I don't know.
I'm glad you're here. I'm going to go back to a slide in just a second, and then we can
Okay.
continue. Dr. Carlson.
Yes.
Okay, Jessica Pratt
Yes.
and Chief Womack.
Yes.
Okay, Senator Solman, I think we had this discussion probably before you joined, but just to hit the highlights, BJA doesn't have a requirement for or a voting requirement amongst the SCIP advisory board. And, you know, as you know, traditionally at CJC across the board and probably in other areas, legislators have been on grant advisory committees and boards and on the Criminal Justice Commission as non-voters. But if legislators on the SCIP advisory board want to continue as a non-voting member, then they can abstain as they feel the need to on any and all votes. So I'll just leave that up to you if you feel comfortable voting, and if not, totally okay too.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. So with that in mind, Senator Solomon, did you want to vote for the chair?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Jenny, do we have quorum on that?
It looked like we have 10 votes without Senator Solomon, with Senator Solomon 11. I don't know if
Okay.
that causes an issue if we need 12 in that case.
We can circle back to this at 1 when Dr. Chisholm will be at the meeting.
Perfect. So at the moment, we have 11.
Yeah. I'll check back when she joins and ask for her vote then. So establishing a predictable interval of SCIP advisory board meetings is needed. Once the grants are up and running, it's predicted that the meetings will be 90 minutes quarterly, unless additional meetings are needed for a decision. So I just wanted to ask if it would be helpful to send a general poll for the best days and times of the week. I know Fridays are generally not good for the advisory board. So is there any other feedback that would help with this?
This is Trevor Womack. I would suggest some sort of doodle poll or something just to get a feel.
Okay, thank you. Okay, so after the meeting in the next couple of days, I can send a doodle poll out to the advisory board to see when the best time is for all of you. I wanted to give a brief update on SCIP 24 before we get into the goals and the priorities. So for SCIP 24, the project period or the time the money can be spent is between October 24 through October 2027. The available funding is 1.7 million. And so the graphic at the bottom of the slide may be helpful to visualize the overlap of the two project periods, with the SCIP 22 project period ending in August 26, but the SCIP 24 ending in October of 27. So there is some overlap, but the SCIP 24 has a longer project period just due to the release of the application. So are there any questions about this screen in particular? Aaron?
Just a quick point of clarification, the 2.8 million that you referenced on an earlier slide, that's from SCIP 22, is that correct?
Correct.
Thank you.
Yes. Okay, so one of the main jobs today that we need to vote on is the priorities for SCIP 24. And there is an important question here. What is the advisory board's interest regarding the funding priorities for SCIP 24? So at the end of June, a poll was sent out to SCIP advisory board members, and based on the results and responses to that poll, the majority voted for continuing with the same priorities as for SCIP 22. And that poll just kind of gave us a general idea of where everyone was standing, but it wasn't an official vote or anything. But today we need to have some discussion about what the advisory board wants for the goals and priorities for SCIP 22 and a more formal vote. The CJC staff recommendation is that considering where we are with SCIP 22, it may be best to maintain the same priorities for SCIP 24 so that we can focus our efforts on developing a grant program on these two areas that were chosen for SCIP 22 and that you see here on the slide. So that distributing the money for these two funding sources can be done on one solicitation, with the funds combined to be 4.5 million. So that's the staff recommendation, but I want to open it up to you guys to discuss what you were thinking about the priorities.
This is Jess. It makes sense to me to continue these same priorities that we'd spent quite a bit of time discussing before, and I think it would make the program easier to carry on for those doing the work.
Okay, thank you, Jeff.
I agree with Jess, and I agree that we put in a lot of thought and effort to settling on these. I guess I just have one question, you never know what might come up, what emerging trend in gun violence or something might happen. And I guess my question is, are these, if we decide to keep these same priorities, are they set in stone? Is there any, ability to pivot, or are we nimble at all if in response to any emerging trends?
Sure. So if the program takes a different direction, or the advisory board, let's say they vote on these priorities, but down the line, something else comes up and there's something that falls within the scope of the program, we can submit a grant award modification to BJA to have them review and approve the scope of the project.
Thank you.
Chief Womack?
If somebody coming in new, I would just quickly say I agree with what's been said already. These priorities look spot on to me, so I fully support this.
Okay. Dr. Carlson?
I was just going to add that I just recently re-reviewed the Surgeon General's advisory on firearm violence in the US. And I just wanted to share that these are really consistent with the calls for further practice and research for gun violence prevention with an evidence base. So I think we should feel pretty good about what we converged on even before this advisory came out.
Thank you for sharing that. Any other questions or conversations to have about it? Okay, so we can take a vote on accepting the priorities as shown, knowing that we need to circle back to someone that's coming in late or later. So I'm going to hold off on the vote till maybe closer to 1, so we can do the whole vote then when Dr. Chisholm is able to join. After this vote, though, essentially, the next slide is next steps and public comment. We've kind of gone through the meeting pretty quickly. If we don't have quorum today, it is okay. We can meet again and have quorum on this decision. So I'm just going to go ahead and put the vote forward so we can record the vote on record. So is there a motion to accept the priorities as shown?
I'll make a motion to accept the priorities as written.
Okay. Thank you, Senator. Is there a second? I saw Chief Womack.
Happy to second, yes.
Sure. Okay. Thank you. I'll go ahead and call the roll. Peter?
Yes.
Okay. Jeff?
Yes.
Jen Fraga? Roy Moore? Dr. Chisholm? She's coming late. Jess Marks?
Yes.
Aaron Borla?
Yes.
Lori Palmer?
Yes.
Thank you. Councilman Vince Jones-Dixon. Shannon Seville,
Yes.
Rep Boyce, Kimberly Rose,
Yes.
Senator Solman,
Yes.
okay, Dr. Carlson,
Yes.
Jessica Pratt,
Yes.
and Chief Womack.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you. I think we are still at the same quorum issue as we were before, but that's okay. So in talking about the next steps, the plan is to finalize and submit the SCIP 24 solicitation to BJA with the funding priorities that the advisory board chooses. Once approved, the solicitation will be open to the eligible applicants to apply for the SCIP 22 and the SCIP 24 funds. The advisory board will review the applications. Those will be submitted to BJA for approval, and BJA will approve the funding for the applicants. And then after that, the next step would be the grant agreements and the funds being dispersed. Are there any questions on the next few steps? Kimberly.
Lindsay, could you just maybe make a couple comments about what that grant review application process, the review of the grant applications would look like? Is it going to be
Sure.
an in-person meeting, Teams meeting? How are you envisioning that we approach that?
So I'm envisioning that it's a Teams meeting ahead of time. The advisory board would have access or copies of the applications in advance so they could review them. And then during the advisory board meeting, the board will vote on which applications meet the criteria and meet the scope of our priorities and choose from there. And then those will be sent to BJA for final approval. Okay, Senator Solman?
Thank you so much. Can you tell me, will they be present so we can ask questions, or is that not the process?
That's a good question. I think typically they haven't been present. Rachel, would you like to add on to that, please?
Yeah, I can answer, Senator, your question. We typically don't have grantees present in meetings, and the reason why is because in the past there's tended to be a back and forth, and sometimes it puts the grantee in a position of having to defend their application, which we don't really want. We want to avoid that kind of in that back and forth, and so staff does that job. And so our analysis is if something isn't clear, we go back and get information from the grantees. We ask the questions. And so we kind of take care of that so that the grantee doesn't feel like they're put on the spot or that they're being called out in a public meeting. And so that's kind of our job, is to make sure that the information that we present to you all has the information that you need. And if there's anything that's missing, we go get it from the grantee. And that's kind of been our process in the past. So we typically don't have them be present in these meetings.
Follow up?
Yeah, absolutely.
So I appreciate that information, and I'm kind of just taking from a little bit from my experience. I'm currently on the charitable checkoff committee. And so a lot of times we have all of the organizations that are either wanting to continue or be added to the charitable checkoff come before the committee, and they present, and then there is question and answer time. If there's something that needs clarification or something like that, they then present. So I guess if that is the practice that has been done or approved, that's one thing. Is there the ability then for the staff to at least give us some information to come back and say, I mean, I would prefer that it all be in public. I'll just put my preference there. But I will say that if I'm of the minority, then any questions that the staff members come up with needing more clarity, will you be able to come to in front of us and say, here's, grantee ABC and ABC, here's some things that we needed clarification on. This is what they provided. And, and we can go from there. I prefer it to be just to reiterate, I would prefer that they be joining us as well, though.
Yeah, that's great feedback for us to consider, for sure, for staff to consider that process. We do that. So if there is something that is unclear, we do specify that in the process of presenting you all the information. The other thing too is when the applications come in, you get them right away. And so you have, excuse me, you have access to the applications as well. And are able to ask staff for clarification or any sort of new information or more information that you may need from the grantee. So it's kind of our process, but we appreciate the feedback. We're always open to exploring new things. It's just been kind of our experience in the past with grants, particularly competitive grants, that it is easier for the applicant if information goes through staff. But absolutely appreciate that feedback.
Follow up to my follow-up.
Yeah, of course.
So, and I will just reiterate that.
Question.
And I just will reiterate that I think it's like the clarity and having it transparent. These are competitive dollars, so they should be able to come in front of us and really sell their response and how their plan. So I guess, sometimes it takes away that, it just provides it more light and transparency. So thank you so much. Appreciate it.
No, absolutely. This is feedback that we appreciate. So we try to be as transparent as possible in our processes. And so when we appreciate this feedback in terms of how we do things with all of our grants. So don't apologize. And it's something that we will absolutely consider with this process. So
Lori.
Lindsay, I'll hand it back to you.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Palmer?
Yes, will we have the opportunity to view what the application looks like that they need to submit?
Sure. Once the solicitation is released, the solicitation will have all the parameters and specifics of, we're asking for these things. And so the application is going to be built off of that solicitation. And so you will have the opportunity to know what's asked of the potential applicants.
Well, yeah, I know that. I'm talking about a blank one that we can view.
You said you're a blank one? I'm sorry.
Yeah, a blank one without them filling it out. The blank, what's the questions that we're going to be asking them?
That could be provided for sure. I mean, that's good feedback. If that's something that the advisory board members are interested in seeing, certainly.
I know for me, it will prepare me, for what's coming, and also if I had questions about what's needed that's not included on that application, I have a chance to, say, well, hey, I noticed that, this is not included on it, and maybe this should be included on it, a little, something like that.
Totally understand where you're coming from, so that can be provided. Senator Solomon?
Okay.
Oh gosh, so sorry. So it's bringing other questions to mind. And so my question is, what is the timeline for these applications? And if, is it possible that you can provide us I say us, all legislators, a standard script, something to put into our newsletters with a link so that people could, from our districts could apply for these dollars? Is that a possibility?
Of course. So to address that, yeah, we can absolutely send out information and figure out how to circulate it the best with the application link. And you touched on one other point. Were you asking to see the application in advance as well? Okay.
I wasn't
Yeah.
necessarily asking for the see the advancement. I was just saying that, is it possible that we can have something that we can help put out the information as well?
Of course.
As well as all the members. They may have other, you know, avenues and folks that they want to make sure that they see, you know.
Yeah, of course, because the board decided that this was going to be open across the state. So certainly. And we'll make note of that too. I see another hand raised.
It's me,
Aaron, go ahead.
I just have a question. I think Lori's question about seeing the questions ahead of time is a great one. Is there a rubric for review? So we all are reviewing based on sort of the same criteria?
Okay, well, listen, I'm giving this back to you under one ground. When I say.
So there will be a rubric. I don't know it right at this moment, but there will be a guide that helps determine whether this applicant is eligible, whether they meet the criteria across the board.
Perfect. Thank you.
Dr. Carlson?
Hi, I was just thinking more on Senator Salmon's idea about having prospective awardees join and respond to questions. And I wonder if written questions and answers would also be considered transparent, but would also like maybe be more equitable of a process, because I think about the CVI groups that my team works with and how, I mean, they're out in action when we all you know, are comfortable in meetings and they're all boots on the ground doing the hard work. So I just think about that and whether it would create some kind of inequity with some groups that don't have the flexibility of joining a meeting.
That's a good
Just
point.
curious if written, yeah, if like written would still be transparent enough in these cases.
Definitely something to consider. Senator Solman?
Quick question. It's made me think, is this application accessible in multiple languages?
Rachel, I'm going to ask you about that.
Yeah, Senator Solomon, that is something that we currently don't have. It's something that internally CJC has talked about. It's just kind of at this point, a capacity issue in terms of having somebody that has the capacity to kind of take that on, because I believe you have quite a bit of experience with that, and it's a big lift. And so we've had conversations about it. We currently don't. We try to be as accessible as possible and as transparent as possible. And so we do have some alternatives to that we can offer. But currently, that is something that we don't have, but we know that we certainly should and have had conversations about it. So absolutely. Yes.
Follow up. I think it is absolutely, I mean, I do think it's critical, just as you agree upon that as well, especially, even if we are able to address our like Hispanic community and Latino community. I think that maybe you could potentially, I don't know how long this application is, but potentially you might be able to reach out to the LPRO, the LPRO office, because they do have staff that is specific there to help bridge that.
Okay, that would be,
so maybe that is something that they can offer.
Okay, can we reach out to you for more detail on that in terms of who to reach out to specifically, or is it? Okay, that would be fantastic. Yeah, and this is kind of just to get to your point about the lift of the application. We also are very aware of that as well, that we try not to make the application itself not too much of a burden, kind of getting to Dr. Carlson's point to an equity. So the lift we try to decrease for applicants as well. And so that might be something that if LPRO has the capacity, that we could definitely reach out for their help with that as well. So, but yes, we do agree this is something that we absolutely should have.
Any other questions or comments about anything or this slide?
Oh my gosh, I've been so chatty.
We love it. Go ahead.
At the very least, there are community partners that we can partner with that can help move that language and those applications and help people. If the language is the barrier, there are community partners that we have that could help with that. I think this is an incredible opportunity to help communities that are deeply impacted, and the language issue should not be the barrier. I promise I'm not going to say anymore.
Thank you. These are all good points, and but thank you for that. And you can always share as much as you want. So if there's no other comments on this page, I am going to pause for a second or a couple of minutes. Now is the time for public comment. So if there's any member of the public that wants to comment, if you could raise your hand and keep the comments 1 to 2 minutes max. And just a reminder, we're not able to answer questions, so keep your comments to statements only. Not seeing any raised hands. Well, that concludes our meeting today. I thank you all for your time and for all your efforts for the board. I'll be in touch with the doodle poll to ask about when is the best time to have additional meetings, what day of the week, what time of the day, as well as update you on when our next meeting will be so that we can have quorum on these votes as well. So thank you all for your time, and we'll see you the next meeting.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.